first Taste Talk, welcome. If this is your 31st, we love your passion for the Taste Talk. So without further ado, I would like to get started with tonight's topic. We have Sruthi Swaminathan back again, and she's actually going to be doing a dessert for us tonight. So I'm very excited. This is a dessert I myself am not very familiar with. And I know it's been referred to as like an Indian twist on ice cream. Am I correct in that? Okay.
Yeah.
So Sruthi, please, let's get going.
Okay, thanks guys for joining. Yeah, so Kulfi, which I'm gonna make today, I'm gonna make a variation of it, which is like a spiced Kofi. It is a traditional Indian ice cream. It's made in a little bit of a different way. It has a combination of evaporated milk, condensed milk, and heavy cream or half and half. So this is not the kind of thing to make if you're like on one of those January diets, I call them. It's not meant to be that, and it won't help you with that. So, but this is the kind of thing you can have if like you're craving something other than your regular ice cream, other than your regular brownies and cookies and things like that. This is something you can try. So traditionally, so Kulfi first originated in the Mughal Empire around the 16th century. It was made in these sort of special clay pots, which were used to cool them rather rapidly. And what that did is it allowed the kulfi to not form sort of crystals as it was being frozen. And so that resulted in a really rich and really kind of creamy, smooth texture to the kulfi compared to others. It's also nowadays a super popular street food. In India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, all of these are places where you can go and just get kulfi on the street. It's super refreshing, it's creamy, it's sweet, it's satisfying. I included kulfi in one of the pop-up dinners that I did earlier this year before I had to cancel them. It was the last course, of course, because it was a dessert. And people were actually very surprised at what it was. I don't know what they were expecting, but it ended up being a nice rounding to the meal. And so I'm going to teach you how to make a pretty easy version of it, I would say. I've made this several times just this year because, you know, I don't have like an ice cream machine. I don't have any fancy kind of baking or specialized dessert equipment, I guess if you call it that, but you don't really need any of that for this. So like I said, it's a frozen dairy dessert. I'm sure you could use some sort of dairy alternatives in this if you're lactose intolerant. I haven't done that because I love milk to a fault, especially condensed milk. So it involves, typically in the olden days, it would involve a lot of slow cooking, constant stirring to kind of prevent the milks from sticking to the pan and from browning. But nowadays it's a lot quicker. Other things people do to thicken this kulfi, because I said it's made with evaporated milk. So evaporated milk is exactly what it sounds like. It's milk that's just been reduced by, I think, about like 50–60% to its original volume. So what's left is really thick. You have a lot of the fat, a lot of the protein left in there, and it's generally thicker than your regular milk. And condensed milk is essentially evaporated milk with a lot of sugar, added. And I remember as a kid, just like eating condensed milk sandwiches. I don't know if anyone did that. It's just like
not memory I have, but
I mean, I say as a kid, but like I'm sure I had a condensed milk sandwich like 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it's delicious. It's just white bread, toasted, condensed milk in the middle, maybe even a little sugar in case there isn't sugar in the condensed milk for you. And anyways, yeah, that's quite good. But now I'm going to use it in a more sophisticated way and just put it in a dessert and call it Kulfi. All right, other things you can do to thicken it, because it's already thicker because of the evaporated milk instead of regular milk, is some people will add like cornstarch to it, which I'm not going to do. People will let it simmer for a long time to reduce even further, which I'm not going to do. And when you think about the kind of flavors that you can make this with, your options are really endless. Today I'm going to make more of a sort of traditional, but I call it like a spiced Kofi because I'm not just adding cardamom and saffron, which is typically added to it. I'm also adding a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon to it as well. So not enough where it kind of completely overwhelms the dessert, but enough to let you know there's something different about it. Other ways people make it is at the very end. Kulfi is actually very pretty to look at if you add all the bells and whistles at the end. So a lot of times people will make the Kulfi and then sprinkle some kind of garnish on it. So think different kind of nuts like pistachios, or sometimes even peanuts. Sometimes I'm even thinking right now, like I might try mine later on with a little bit of fresh rosemary, which I've never tried before, but I think it might go with it because it's more aromatic and a little more fresh. So I'm going to try that later tonight and not mess with it during this session. But okay, let's get started. It should be pretty quick because I'm going to show you guys all the ingredients. I'm going to show you how I mix them together, and then we'll boil some milk, add it all together, and then set it up to go in the freezer. Okay, so everything is here. So I have all you need is like a large bowl, some kind of a ladle to scoop things out. Or someone says, will basil go with that? Maybe. I might try it. Anything kind of fresh and that you like the flavor of the herb. I wonder if even sweetening it sometimes, like I wonder how it would be with like a little bit of reduced balsamic. These are all kind of talking about blending more flavors. I actually have some reduced balsamic that I might try later too. So that's the nice thing, is you have options of how you want to do it. Okay, so what I have here, and Christina, I don't think I sent you the recipe for this, so I will right after this class.
No, so if you are not on our email list, make sure and reach out to me at taste@nl.edu so that you can get the recipe when we have it available.
Okay. So what I'm going to add is, this is a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. I'm just going to pour this. Actually, before we start all this, why don't we start this other thing, which is what's going to take a little bit of time. So all I have here is the saucepan. I'm going to turn on the heat. Oops. Turn on the heat. And you can use heavy cream for this. I'm using some half and half. And I'm going to add about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of this, which I think is all that's left in here. Maybe a little more. We'll save that. And you don't want to turn up the heat too high. Again, you don't want to burn the bottom of it. You just want it to come up to a slow simmer. I also usually don't have it come to a boil. And one thing I'm going to add in here, I'm even going to add it now, and as it warms up, it'll get infused. Is what I have here is some saffron. I just bought this at the Indian grocery store. It came in a little thing like this. Now this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, I think this is like known as the most expensive price of spice per ounce. Like
it is an extremely expensive priced spice, and one of the reasons why, if you aren't familiar with saffron, is it is actually harvested from crocuses. And those who know a little bit about flowers are aware that crocuses have a very, very short span as it blooms. So it's a very short amount of time that there is to be able to like harvest them and get them and capture those very amazing saffron threads.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I have some saffron right here. You don't need too much of it. So I'm just gonna grab like a little pinch like this. So for reference, this little box was about like $5 or $6, and it's a gram, just for reference. But you don't need too much to either get the beautiful color that comes from it, or to get a little hint of flavor, which is what you want. So I'm going to grab about that much, maybe a little bit more. And it looks like it's not going to do anything, but you'll see as the milk or as the half and half kind of warms up, you can actually already kind of see. I'm going to move this a little bit to show you. You're starting to see the little bit of yellow around the saffron. So that's just the color coming out of it.
Yeah, it seeps out pretty quickly.
Yep. And so as this warms up, I'm just going to mix it in. You can see it's like gradually turning just a light warm yellow. Again, this adds a nice color to it too, but not too much. Okay. And then we're gonna go back here.
Back again to the other side.
Yeah, back here. Okay. So now I'm gonna add the rest of the stuff. I'm gonna add some evaporated milk. I tried having a little bit of this and I was like, is it the same as condensed? It's not. It's not at all. Okay. And I'm also going to add some condensed milk.
Yeah, that's the good stuff.
Like I made a batch of this earlier and I put everything in and then I was like licked what was left on the spoon. Because how can you not? All right, Christine,
you know what? It's a very nostalgic and a very innocent experience. It just brings you right back to your childhood, whatever kitchen it was that you grew up in and saw someone cooking. It brings you back to those times, and sometimes we need that right now.
Yeah, and look at how creamy that is.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the best. All right, so then, see, I want to get all of this out, but then I made the mistake, I think the last time I made it, of like trying to use a really short spoon or trying to use a finger, and I definitely cut my hand on the can, so don't do that. And then
could you potentially dump the condensed milk in first and then use the evaporated and try and get some of that extra stuff off?
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. I'm glad you brought that up. I was just going to mention that to everyone. No. Actually, what I did last time is it was like this. I got as much of it as I could, and then I swirled in a little bit of the warm milk.
Yeah, that would help even more.
The warm milk then helped some of this like release a little bit too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna mix this. You can see it's like pretty thick at the bottom. In the meantime, we're gonna add the spices. I'm gonna give you the spice amounts because
Yep, I'll type them in.
So this is cardamom, but it's ground cardamom. So cardamom is one of those spices that I usually do not like in whole form, because cardamom is actually used to flavor a lot of Indian dishes, like a lot of savory dishes, a lot of sweet dishes as well. But when it's used in its whole form, of course, it gives that kind of flavor that you're like, where's that coming from? And it does add something to a dish. But just my luck, whenever I eat it and like my mom or my aunts or anyone makes it, I end up being the one like biting into the whole piece of cardamom, and then it ruins the meal. So when I make something, I avoid whole cardamom. Here, I'm going to add just ground cardamom, which you can find at the Indian store. Now, this might look like a lot, but remember, we're making enough for like 20 portions or something. So this is going to be like enough for 20 people or so. So don't think about that. And then here's some cinnamon. I was telling Christine before we started that.
Cardamom.
What was that?
How much cardamom?
It's about
like a teaspoon.
It's about 2 teaspoons actually.
Okay.
About 2 teaspoons, yeah. And then here's some cinnamon. This is about a teaspoon. And what I love about these spices in particular is they have that versatility of just being able to be used in both savory and sweet dishes. You know, I put cinnamon in my savory dishes. Like I put cinnamon in my chicken curry before. Maybe not as much, but you can add a little bit to add that, and same with cardamom. And actually, evaporated milk is something that you can also use in savory dishes. You know, you can use it to add kind of body or richness to soups and to casseroles. I've even added a little bit into like my pasta sauces sometimes to thicken them up. There's a wide range of uses for it. Okay,
yeah,
so
I use cinnamon in my chili.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you just use a little bit of it, or?
Depends on how people feel about cinnamon. So
yeah. Well, I made a batch earlier and my dad tried it and he was like, maybe there's a little too much cinnamon in this. And I was like, I don't think there's such a thing, but
there are those who are like, whoa, you've gone overboard on the cinnamon, but they must not be big fans of Ann Sapper's cinnamon rolls. So
yeah, but then it works out because now this version, I just didn't have as much left as I put in the last one. So this batch will just have less cinnamon, like by that. Okay, and a tiny bit of nutmeg. Okay, just a little bit of nutmeg. So like,
that's a good idea. Cinnamon and spaghetti sauce as well.
oh yeah. So in spaghetti sauce, are they talking like in a red sauce or in a white?
In a red sauce.
Red sauce, okay. All right, so you look at this and you can see it looks kind of clumpy. See that? But don't worry, we're gonna fix it. All right, so then you go back here. We're looking at it, see how it's like yellowed a little bit. You guys see that? It's like yellowed a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna stir it a little more. And you see, I'm never quite bringing it up to a boil. I just want to simmer it. I mean, for a few reasons. One, I don't want to make a mess. Anytime I boil something, it just like spills all over. Two, right after this, when we combine everything, we're going to put it in the freezer. And I don't like to put very hot things in the freezer. So and also there's no need to boil it. Like the warmth is really to encourage the saffron to kind of release the color and release the flavors into the half and half. Okay, any other questions?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. And I should also say, like on the cinnamon, sometimes what can happen is when I add too much cinnamon to something, it tastes kind of like bitter or something, or any of these spices really. Like if I put too much clove or too much turmeric or too much cardamom, like it just becomes very bitter. And this is a dessert, and I'm not one of those people that likes bitter taste. Like I know some people like the bitter taste of something going with like the sweet taste of something else. But I just want this to be like all sweet. So we're not going to do that. Okay. So this has come to a nice little small boil, a light simmer. Now I'm going to pour this into here to get the remaining condensed milk. Because if I don't get it into here, like I'm going to be eating that later. So I just want to.
We're just going to prevent that situation.
I let me eat it in a more sophisticated way in the Kulfi instead. Okay, so let's. Okay, it already smells so good. Look at that. You smell it?
The smell-o-vision isn't working.
Okay. All right, so I'm adding that in. And then I'm going to add the rest of this in here. Okay. And still kind of clumpy. So what I do at this stage, so here's, not that any of what I've shown so far in making Kofi is done like the traditional by the book way, but another thing people will do is like they'll make the base of the Kulfi, so with evaporated milk, condensed milk, cream, and then they'll let that freeze and they'll use all these things I'm using now as toppings or as kind of sprinklings later. What I'm doing is I'm just incorporating it into like the body of the Kulfi itself. We certainly don't have to do that. And if later on you want to sprinkle cinnamon on it or sprinkle or add the things we talked about before, like any kind of herbs or any kind of sauces, you can definitely do that. All right, so now to get rid of all these clumps, I like to just blend it. So I like to use an immersion blender and completely kind of puree all of it. So you can mute me if you want, Christine. This is going to make a bunch of noise.
Zoom does it automatically once the loud noise happens.
Okay, so if I go,
yeah, it just does it automatically. It'll mute you. It's great. It's like when we have John shaking cocktails, it gets quiet on his end.
Okay, tell me if it works.
Well, see? Yeah. Not offensive at all. It just reduces the sound down a little bit. So
What?
it just reduces the sound down a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Little more, not done. Okay, look at that.
Nice and blended.
Okay. And now, are there any questions? I saw something come up, but I didn't see what it was.
If someone wants to make mango kulfi, when should they add the mango in?
Mango is my absolute favorite fruit. Like, if you're in India, like one summer I was in India for work. It was in like June, July, I think mid-June. And I must have eaten like 3-4 whole mangoes a day. Like it was just, and there's so many different varieties. They're ripe. It's the most refreshing thing to have. So what I would say is like, if I haven't made mango kulfi, I do want to. I would probably use mango pulp. I would probably use mango pulp for the mixture or the batter, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I would probably cut up the pieces of mango later on, squeeze a little bit of lemon on them just to give like a little brightness, because the kulfi is already very sweet. And I guess it depends on the type of mango. There are mango varieties that even when they're close to being ripe aren't as sweet as others. So one, if I wasn't using pulp and I was using fresh mango, I would probably use a variety that wasn't ultra sweet, just to give some contrast with this one. And then I'd probably use the pieces at the end with a little lemon. But then if I'm putting it in here, I would just use it as a pulp.
Yeah, or even you could maybe even use like if you could get a mango puree at your store, or a mango nectar and use that, and then have a mango that you use for all of your garnishes and such at the end.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Okay, so now this is probably like the most cute part of this recipe, which is that so I've made this a few ways, right? So I've done it like this and then just poured it into a tub or a container and like put it in. But especially when I did my dinner back in February, whenever that was, I wanted there to be some element of like whimsy or like something different at the end of the meal. And so what I did is I decided to serve them as popsicles. So kulfi in India, like you either get them served in a bowl, you can also kind of get them on a stick. So what I did for that session is I bought a bunch of like craft popsicle sticks, just like this. And I have these little Dixie cups, which are basically like large shot glasses, I guess. Like, so many shot glasses that I know of, but like these, I just use these. Also, okay, so what I will do is I just fill these up, but I don't want to fill them up all the way because it is going to expand a little bit in the freezer. I learned that the hard way the first time. Well, I just got, you just get over eager when you do some things. Like if you're like making some stuffed mushrooms, tacos, like putting things into tacos or samosas or whatever, you want a lot of that filling that you spent the time making, and you're like, that's where the flavor is. So you try to overdo it and then it just splats out or whatever. Like that's what happened. Okay. You guys relate? You're like, no, we all have more self-control than you. Yeah, you guys are all, I hear you guys are all muted, but I can see it. You guys are all like condensed milk and now this, like, got it, Message received, guys. Message received. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just take a little bit of this. Even this ladle, this is too much for this, I realize. So I'll fill it up about like that, like a little more than 3/4 of the way. And what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and fill all of these cups. And then I have these, which I made by magic and also hard work, just kidding, that I made earlier. So what this is, so it just looks like this. And the trick is you're like, well, I got to put the popsicle stick in. I haven't really made too many popsicles in my life, other than these Kofi ones. But then I just realized for these, especially because it's not an official like popsicle maker or something, it's not like this stick will just stay in there. You have to kind of wait for it to solidify a little. So what I did is I put them in the freezer for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes until they got a little solid. And then I just stuck the sticks in there right after. So let's take them out. This is like on its last. Okay, you know what? This is done. We're gonna do this.
Yeah, I like this view.
Yeah, okay, great. This. So this is the one I just added, still liquid, not gonna have it. If you wanna drink it just like that, that's fine. But these are really cool. So when I made them for my dinner, what I did was I did this and then I placed them, I used this as kind of a water bath. And I just filled them up with warm water about like half hour or so before I was gonna serve them. But by that point, they had already been freezing for like 24 hours. They were a little more hardened than these are probably. And then you can either, once they warm up, you could either just slide these right out. But since these haven't been, like slide them out of the cup, I mean, or you can kind of.
Yeah, rip off the cup.
You just rip off the cup. Yep, exactly. Oh my God, look at this. Oh, this is interesting because it's not frozen all the way through. It's given me some like nice shading without meaning to. There you go.
Awesome.
It looks like that. Now, note about this, right? So this looks this way because when you're adding all those spices and stuff like that, yeah, you stir them, but then there's some liquid. So they're obviously sinking to the bottom of the Kofi. But that's not all of them that are in there. Like if I cut into this, there's going to be little flecks inside as well. And if you want more throughout, you can always sprinkle a little bit on the outside after. So this is what it looks like. And then you can see the top has kind of a different color without me intending it to, just because that part hasn't completely frozen over yet. So I'm going to try it. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Yum.
No,
I like how the spices kind of like settle at the top of the popsicle, the bottom of the cup. So it gives it a really nice, a nice look to it too. It's not just one solid color. Yeah, and I'm sure you could like add different things, like if you wanted to add just something for decoration, or like we're saying the mango or something like that, adding in some fruit or something, it would be really cool.
You could definitely do it. And the nice thing with this is there is some texture to it as you're eating it. You know, like as I'm eating it, I'm like, wow, this is really creamy and this is really sweet. And then the bits at the top and the little bits in the middle, I can kind of feel the texture of that. And because I'm not a person that typically I like eating nuts by themselves, like flavored cashews or peanuts or pistachios. But I don't typically like nuts in food, like in desserts or whatever. So I don't add them, but I'm sure you could. I was also thinking about for this version, maybe adding raisins to mix itself. So if you had some small, either golden raisins or the dark, the brown raisins, you could get to the step where you puree everything and then add it in before you scoop it out and pour it in here. So really the options are endless. You can flavor it how you like. You can add whatever toppings you like. And as you saw, it doesn't really take that long to make. So I hope some of you guys try it. It's one of those things that, like, with the other recipes I've shown, or any recipes you watch someone else make, really, which is they're making something that they're comfortable with an assortment of flavors and spices that they maybe have on hand. But this is an example of something that's really popular in India, but then you could, like, evaporated milk, condensed milk, like you just get that in the baking aisle, half and half next to the milk, you know. And then cinnamon, cardamom, you can still get that at grocery stores, but cardamom is maybe the only thing that's a little more like, would you find it? But everything else is easily accessible, easy to make, and takes really a couple of hours from start to finish, including the freezing time. Oh, can you add honey? Oh, I'm so
not.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so glad she asked that question. I was actually thinking before I was doing this, I was like, I should add some honey to it, like just drizzle it at the top. Again, I have a sweet tooth, so I would do it, but I also know there's different kinds of honey.
My gosh, honey has come up with in every single taste talk since we had the cheese and honey discussion on Tuesday.
Oh,
It came up yesterday. It's coming up today. It's like, yeah, we talked about several different kinds of honey in that taste talk. So if anyone hasn't seen that one, it's up on YouTube. The cheese and honey discussion is fascinating. So there's a lot to learn about honey.
There's more kind of citrusy honeys that aren't as sweet, and maybe more like honey is acidic anyway, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I wouldn't be able to say, I wish Lydia was here right now because she'd be able to talk so much more to it. But a lot of the citrus ones are going to be things pollinated, that the bees are pollinating those kind of trees and blooms. So if you see orange blossom honey, it's not that it's the bees are interacting with orange blossoms, and so that brings in the citrus notes, and things that are going to have citrus notes in the honey are going to tend to be some of the lighter and more alpine type honeys. I'm hoping I'm getting all the information I learned still correct. So if I'm incorrect and anyone was at that, please chime in. But I think the lighter honeys are going to go along with this a lot better than some of the darker honeys or buckwheat honeys.
That's actually a great idea. I'm glad Amy brought that. I might actually drizzle. I mean, I have so many. Like I have double now, so like I don't have to stop at one. Yeah.
So any other questions, folks? No, it looks like we might be
okay.
Definitely. Sruthi's gonna send me this recipe all typed up, and I'm gonna send it out on the next time I send a reminder for Taste Talks. So you will all be getting it in your inbox if you are on the email list. And let's see, what is our next talk that is coming up? I believe our next discussion is next week is chocolate. I can't remember exactly off the top of my brain. So you will have to go and check your emails, check the December schedule to see when the next Taste Talk is. We're excited and hope that you all can join us. Anything else you would like to say before we are finished, Sruthi?
No, I just saw someone asked a question about honey, but I missed it.
Would you add the honey before or after freezing?
I would add it after freezing. As I'm plating it, I would drizzle honey on top of it. It would make it both look good, and I don't really know what happens to honey when it freezes.
Yeah, I don't know how it would act with that. So,
and I think the idea of adding something on top to me is almost like a garnish, you know, whereas I'm thinking if I put it in when everything is still warm and I'm freezing, it might just get incorporated into like the body of the Kofi, which is fine too. I bet you could make like a honey Kofi if you wanted, you know, but really, I guess my point in showing this recipe today and what I hope people take away is that this is just a base, you know, this is a base recipe, and it happens to be my favorite kind. This is just no frills, like no nuts, no nothing else. But you can always adapt it. You know, you can always make it your own. You can experiment with adding different things to it after the blending step. And hey, maybe using less condensed milk if for whatever reason you want to do that. But yeah. Yep, right. It's great, guys. I can attest. It is.
Someone wants a bite.
I know. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone have a fantastic weekend, and we hope to see you all at our next talk next week. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, folks. Thank you.